Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to conduct a financial statement analysis of Fisker stock, and I hope this video will inform some Fisker stock investors who are concerned right now as they've seen Fisker stock fall significantly in recent months. So let's jump in, let's see some of the details inside Fisker's financial statements.
I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
All right, so let's start with the overview and management saying that Fisker is building a technology-enabled asset-light automotive business that it believes will be among the first of its kind and aligned with the future state of the automotive industry. Interestingly, they chose to outsource manufacturing to reduce development cost and time to market. Initially, I thought this was a good idea to outsource manufacturing because it's so expensive to develop the manufacturing capacity to create these vehicles, electric vehicles especially. However, given the struggles that Fisker has faced to start up, I'm starting to question whether or not this was a prudent idea from Fisker, or maybe the idea was prudent, but the execution was not. So it's still early to tell if it was an idea problem or an execution problem. Hopefully Fisker can adjust and right this ship and get things going. And so this is the financial statement as of September 30th, 2023. So you can understand there's been a lot of news that's come out since these financial statements were released. Fisker has been in the news a lot lately, and unfortunately it's been mostly for negative reasons, but it's still informative to see what was happening inside of the company as of this date. So based on their current supplier capacity expectations, they forecast they will produce approximately 13,000 to 17,000 vehicles in 2023. In other words, they thought they were going to do about 15,000 vehicles at the midpoint in 2023. Of course, as we're all aware now, they weren't anywhere near that total in 2023, coming in way below that number. And then the delivery difficulties that they had didn't help that situation either. So one of the troubles they had during the third quarter was one of their suppliers experienced financial hardship, and Fisker provided financial assistance to support their production needs. I found that to be surprising, considering just how much money Fisker is losing for Fisker to be helping provide financial assistance to other companies. I found that to be interesting and curious. And if I was an investor, I would not be happy with this decision from Fisker management. However, we need to see more details, and maybe it was required, otherwise they weren't going to be able to get the supplies they needed. And then that raises the question, why is Fisker entering into supply agreements with these sorts of unstable, unsecured suppliers? So you can start to see the beginnings and more of the reasons why Fisker stock is struggling. We're barely in to this video, and we've already seen a few reasons of difficulty, a few execution concerns, and we're just starting this. So thankfully, management is preparing for higher volumes in 2024. If they can get this right and increase their production value, it can help alleviate some of these concerns, because at higher production levels, they expect to get closer to gross profitability, which can then help reduce these losses on the bottom line. Speaking of Fisker's losses, let's take a closer look. So this is for the 3 months ended September 30th, as I noted. And you can see here that revenues came in at 71.8 million, as it was the first quarter that it really increased production to a meaningful level where it generated meaningful revenue of 71.8 million. But the cost of revenues were 104.5 million. So it's losing money on each unit, which is curious because they're outsourcing production. So they've made a deal to pay a per unit price for these vehicles, and they're selling it and they're still losing money. So the whole point of outsourcing production is usually because you can enter into a contract where you'll at least generate gross profit sooner because you're not having to build up a capacity to, let's say, make 100,000 units, but you're still, ramping up and you're still only doing 10 or 20,000 units, and you'll lose money until you get to the 100,000 units. With outsourcing, one of the benefits is that you can start generating gross profit because you're entering into an agreement for a certain price per unit, and then you can go and you can sell it at a higher price than you're paying. But it looks like Fisker was not confident enough in its ability to sell at a price that would be high enough to generate a gross profit. So they lowered prices to generate sales, and they were willing to accept these losses. To make matters worse, they spent $57.6 million on SG&A, sales, selling, general, and administrative expenses, almost as much as revenue. That's a lot. Especially you're just ramping up production, you're just ramping up delivery. I don't know if you needed to ramp up SG&A that much. And of course, that led to significant losses on the bottom line. So during the 3-month period ended September 30th, 2023, the company determined that an $18.2 million inventory valuation adjustment was appropriate due to the lower levels of production during the ramp-up phase, which we expect to continue until we reach full production. So the fact that we did not produce as much led to a loss, an $18.2 million loss, and we expect that to continue. So again, another bad note for Fisker in their execution of the business plan, in not planning effectively and leading to these losses because of misalignment between what they thought they were going to be able to produce and sell and what they're actually able to produce and sell. So overall total headcount for the company increased to more than 1,300 employees as of September 30th, compared to 760 employees as of December 31st, 2022. So what this means is that their cost base is going to be higher because now they've got these employees that they need to pay for, and they're generating a loss on every car that they sell. So it's not like they're getting scale from the gross profit to help pay for all of the other costs down the line. So it's going to lead to bigger losses going forward unless they can really close that gap between revenue and cost of goods sold. So as of September 30th, Fisker had $527 million in cash and restricted cash of $98 million, which is going to support the company for their working capital needs. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about their working capital needs in a little bit, but in July and September, they entered into purchase agreements for the sale of $510 million of convertible senior notes, or this is long-term, this is debt. And the net proceeds from the issuance of the 2025 notes were $445 million net of debt issuance costs. So they're going to owe $510 million, but they only got $445 million. That's typical. That happens. You have to offer your notes at a discount, especially when you're in a desperate type of situation like Fisker is in. The 2025 notes will mature in July of 2025 and September of 2025 unless repurchased or redeemed or converted in accordance with their terms prior to such date. So with convertible notes, the deal usually goes like this. If the stock price rises high enough, then those lenders can choose to take their stock instead of taking their principal back as repayment for debt. But the problem for Fisker is that their stock price has fallen significantly since these dates. So it's unlikely that the lenders are going to take stock. The lenders are going to want cash instead of Fisker stock because the stock price has been depressed. That means that on July, so about in a year and a half and about in 18 months, July and September, Fisker is going to need to come up with $510 million in cash to repay this debt. And we already saw they only have $527 million right now, and they're losing money every month. So by the time this date comes around, it's unlikely that they will still have this same cash available. They'll need to raise new cash. Additionally, in August of 2021, they entered into a sale of 667 million in convertible senior notes that are due in 2026. So these notes will mature on September of 15, 2026, unless converted. And like we talked about with the previous debt, it's unlikely the lenders will convert because the stock price is depressed significantly from August 2021. Go look at where Fisker's stock price was in August 2021 and where it is now. It's likely down over 80% since that point. So these lenders are going to want cash and not Fisker stock. So how is Fisker going to come up with this nearly $1.2 billion in cash when it only has 500 million right now and it's in the process of losing more money? And management has even said we're going to continue losing money until we really ramp up production. So they're really in a time crunch here against this debt. And if they're in a desperate situation, it's going to be hard to refinance this debt. They may not be able to refinance the debt, or they're going to have to pay very premium prices to refinance the debt. They can still sell more stock, which is what investors expect Fisker to do, which can partly explain why the stock price has fallen, among all of the other reasons that we saw in this video why the stock price has fallen. And remember, I said a lot of news has came out since these financial statements were released, most of it being negative news, the recall issue, the need to hire more people, the delivery issues, the changing of the business model to now having to hire dealerships, which is going to hurt their gross profit even more because they got to pay commissions and fees to the dealerships to sell the cars. And so it's only gotten worse for Fisker. And so you can understand why the stock price has been down the way it has. If you liked the video you just saw and you want to see more just like it, please subscribe to the channel. I can't keep this channel free without the support of viewers like you. And if you're already subscribed, thank you, and I appreciate your support.